remember this for a long time. I've actually known Brad since he was about 13, but he was still the same height, about 6'3", 6'4", wingspan like an albatross, and filled a goal, an indoor goal in those days, like you'd put a truck in it. Brad went on from Bay Village, played in the Travel League over there, to the high school, to our first club in Cleveland, East West, to UCLA. And then he had a really interesting story getting himself established as a professional, and that in itself is a wonderful tale of perseverance, which for some of you, when you think, I'm just going to quit because I didn't get the start this week, when you hear that story, if anybody asks him, it's an amazing adventure of frustration and perseverance. So that's who he played for, if you are just coming on out of curiosity. And Brad, if we put the next slide on. We were, Brad had the PSA camp over in Lorraine that some of you will actually have trained in. And one of the little kids in a camp once asked him, so what have you won? And those of us who know Brad chuckled. But when you start adding up his resume in terms of actual medals, well, there's one or two, but when you look at what a career entails and the success that comes from the hard work and taking care of yourself and doing the things that people need to do to survive in professional soccer, that isn't too bad. Probably highlighted, I think Brad would highlight this, by his 310 consecutive Premier League appearances and being at 41, the oldest player to ever play in the Premier League. So it's pretty impressive, and really excited. And Brad, thank you as always, because you're always generous with your time. It's I think the second or the third time we've asked you to do something like this, and it was like, yep, no problem, tell me where and when. So fantastic, but we're really delighted that you are with us. If there's just one more, I think that's one more slide, Brad, or am I just about ready to? Yeah, we after your playing career, Brad was just, those of you who were listening in early, was coaching the U19s and most recently in the New England Revolution in MLS. And now he's involved in a post-MLS venture that if we have some time, we'll come to that at the end. But we want to try to make this more about you asking questions and what you can learn from somebody with Brad Friedel's experience. So hopefully there are some questions coming in, and if there's not, we'll get it started and you can jump in at any point. And we have the first one. So Brad, I'll turn this back to you, Brad Evans.
So is it Harris Turner? David's iPhone has a question. If you want to unmute yourself, go ahead and ask.
Is he there? There it is. I think you might have to repeat that, Brad.
Oh, I didn't hear the.
No, it's actually the question that the person on the.
Yeah,
I think it was Harris Turner.
So the question, Brad, is which goalkeeper did you grow up admiring?
I mean, Tom will attest to this. Growing up, there wasn't a lot of soccer on TV. Real top level soccer back in the day. I think the two teams that I was able to get my eyes on the most were Bayern Munich or Liverpool. Jean-Marie Pfaff was a goalkeeper at the time at Bayern Munich. You had Ray Clements, who was fortunate enough to become a friend of while over in England, especially when the two clubs that I played at, Tottenham and Liverpool, he was legends at. And then after Clem came Bruce Grobbelaar. And if you look at Jean-Marie Pfaff and you look at Bruce Grobbelaar, my style for them couldn't have been any more polar opposite. Clem, a little bit more similar, with the consistency level and things of that nature. But I have to say that I played so many other sports. My upbringing into soccer probably would be unlike most people's that make it into the professional game. And my real mentor that I looked up to was a guy named Tim Harris, who was a goalkeeper. He's capped once by the U.S., but he was my goalkeeping coach at UCLA. And I kind of liked it that way because he was someone that I could actually, email or call, and get real advice from, and he trained me. But it wasn't like I would grow up to, go up the road to, watch the Cleveland Force every day, or watch, Cleveland Cobras play outdoors. We didn't have that. And that's actually something that the United States is missing. I get asked a question all the time. When do you think we're going to compete on the world stage? And the fact of the matter is, we're going to compete on the world stage when the kids and the real athletes in the United States, when they all wake up wanting to play soccer and only soccer. That's when we start really competing. I got lucky. I got really lucky, falling into the professional game because of the way that I went through there. So I know it's a long-winded story just on who did I look up to, but I didn't have that many people. I mean, Tom, you answered. I mean, how often does Soccer America arrive, or was it Soccer Digest back then? Once every 2 weeks or once a week? It was just tough to really get a lot of information.
Brad, just to piggyback off of your answer there, you talked about that you were a multi-sport athlete.
Yep.
But today, obviously, the professionalization of youth sports and of youth soccer at a younger age, where do you fall on that conversation for our young players?
This is a generalization, and please don't take me literal that every single person has to do this, but I think we're too structured nowadays. I think there's some real merit in seeing 6 kids pick sides, 3v3, put a couple of shirts down, and have a little game where there's no referee, no rules, no anything, and you're really testing yourself against each other. I also think that there's a lot of merit, even on the social aspect of playing other sports. I don't know how many people that are on the call follow MLS, but there's a striker at Minnesota. His name was Mason Toy, and I brought him into the under 19 national team, and nearly made the under 20 World Cup team. But he had taken almost a year off of soccer because New York Red Bull wouldn't let him play basketball. And he was a great athlete. I mean, really was super. And I was trying to speak to Red Bull and get my head around, like, what is so bad about playing another sport for a while. Good on movement, good on fitness, good on nutrition, good on speed, good on explosiveness, good on core, good on flexibility. I'm trying to think, like, what is bad with that? I mean, his love was soccer, and if there was ever push came to shove, he would do soccer. But I think you can focus on soccer 100%, no problem. But I think testing yourself and trying the other sports is important. And the last thing I'll add on that is, I've never played as a goalkeeper. I've never competed against or played against another goalkeeper that wasn't a good athlete at the professional level. And I mean, and to take that a step further, take a Harry Kane, for instance, great golfer, great cricket player. They're all coordinated. Like, the top guys are just coordinated in all sports. They really are. They pick up a ping pong paddle, good at ping pong, play pool. It's competitiveness. It's a nature. I think it's really important to do other things. I really do. And that doesn't mean that you can't focus and love soccer. I mean, look at me. I mean, Tom knows my upbringing a little bit more. I mean, I focused on basketball and ice hockey more than I focused on soccer growing up, and I still made it.
Excellent, thank you. We have a question from Igor Bofol, so I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah, it's Igor Bofis. Bradley, you went from Bay Village to East West Soccer Club. Can you talk about why you made that decision, why you and your parents made that decision at the time?
My parents didn't make that decision. That's for sure. Again, how do I answer this? So I didn't make the team when I first tried out. I don't know if Tom knows this story. There was a bunch of us from Bay Village. So I played at a Bay Village Soccer Club, and East West at the time was really the only and the best traveling team, as we called it back then. and I went and tried out, and I didn't make the team. And then I got a call 4 or 5 days later saying, well, that I had, but I was really on the second team. I didn't make the first team way back then on my first tryout. And I can't even remember if I may have missed one of the tryouts because of basketball or something like that, you know. So, but it was the best. It was the best travel team in the area. And what I actually liked about it, looking back on it, because it was kind of the one and only at the time. This was before internationals were set up. Before I'm going to forget some of the names. Before some of the competitors were set up, most of the best players in Northeastern Ohio played for this club team. So we had good competition amongst training and good competition amongst the games. You know,
Now, how old were you?
You wanted to say
how
something?
old were you when you made that change?
13, 14. I believe I remember the tryout was at Brecksville, at the indoor facility. And it must have been, I was 13 or 14 years of age, or, you know, somewhere around there. The landscape's completely different. It would be nice if there was one real pinnacle club, and you didn't have to make all these different choices. And, you know, the best players went to the one club. That's kind of what happened back then. But then a lot more clubs were formed, and it diluted talent. But you could also argue it helped competition on games. You know, so you could take the good with the bad. But that's exactly why I played there back then. It was the best. It was the time, the best coaches, and the best opportunity. And there was a lot of trips. They used to take teams to France. They took teams to Cuba. We went to the Dallas Cup. You know, we went up to Canada, went to Hawaii. We got some, you know, some trips under our belt, which was, looking back on it, was very, very important for the development.
Excellent. Eleanor Klinger, you have a question. I'll unmute you. Eleanor? All right, Eleanor's question was, did you always know that you wanted to play professional soccer? When did you realize it? What was the tipping point?
I didn't realize it until I got out to UCLA. Did I want to? Yeah, maybe by the time I was a senior in high school, but I didn't know a lot about it. Again, I'll go back to my first answer. There wasn't a lot of information on the professional game. I think a trip that I took my senior year with East West over to France was an eye opener. And there was a little bit of a taste for it, without a doubt. But I didn't really think I could or how to until after Ziggy called Lothar Osiander up and said, you should look at this goalkeeper. And I went into my first national team event at that time. So I didn't get called into any youth national teams until after I was at UCLA. So I would have been 19 years of age at that time.
Excellent. Ihor has a follow-up question to his.
Okay.
Yes. What criteria would you advise a parent and a player to use in regards to switching from let's say a regional-based club to an ECNL level club?
Wow, that's a tough one to answer, because as I've met across the country, and I know you'll appreciate this part of my answer, is there's a lot of really good people and a lot of really good coaches and a lot of really not so great people and a lot of really not so good coaches. And quite frankly, I don't know them all. You know, so giving you the advice on, yes, you're at a club right now, you should definitely go to ECNL. It's really hard to say yes, because sometimes the grass isn't always greener. Sometimes it is. What I would say is if your son or daughter is able to go into a higher level of competition and they have an ability, I think it's always better, if you can, to play with and against the better competition, because you can test yourself more. That doesn't mean that you're not going to run into trials and tribulations with the new club. But it does mean that you'll be playing with and against better players. The other thing that I would say to that is, if your son or daughter is maybe good enough or maybe not, you have to be prepared as a family that they might not get playing time at the higher level, so to speak. And you have to be prepared for that, and you have to take that in the right way. And that's not having conversations negatively with the coach and the club. That's talking to your son or daughter and saying you need to work harder, finish the season out and assess if you need to change or not. So if you can get to higher competition, get to higher competition. But I said this because it doesn't mean that the coaching is going to be great at that place or the people are all going to be wonderful. But I also understand your thinking, and it could turn out to be the best move. And I'm really sorry that I'm kind of on the fence with that. But in my experience, there's some really good clubs and some really not so good clubs, and I hope that helps you a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Gordon Brown, I'm going to unmute Gordon. He has a question about training.
Hey, Brad, how are you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
I would like to know how you. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I would like to know what your weekly training regime looked like, and all the different clubs you went to. Where was the toughest training regime? Was it Liverpool or Blackburn or somewhere else?
The toughest training regime, the two toughest by a country mile, was Mauricio Pochettino and Mark Hughes. The fitness levels that were required, especially from Mauricio, were off the charts. I mean, really, really, really phenomenal stuff. And I was with Mauricio when I was 43 up till I was 44. And I was a little bit, always enjoyed it, always liked it. And I know I was 44, but I was, thinking back, I mean, his trainings were tough. Whoa. They required an extra lung. And if you couldn't do it, out the door. That's how it was. And Jurgen Klopp's very similar from what I understand, my weekly routine, I was very disciplined as a player. I didn't have many injuries. I wasn't a big drinker. I didn't smoke. Never done a drug in my life. Those are all true facts. I did at the age of 31, I started doing a lot of yoga and kept myself. I mainly did yoga for injury prevention and meditation. I was incredibly superstitious when I was younger, and I needed some help in that department because it starts overwhelming your every day, where you have to eat the same thing and drink the same thing and get dressed the same way, and I needed to get out of that. So yoga helped me with that. But no, I trained many hours a day, and was so Monday was always a sort of a second recovery day, but I did a lot of gym work. Tuesday, Wednesday, I blasted away hard. Thursday was usually core and massage therapy. Friday was a normal training session. It wasn't any lighter than the other days, other than the time we were out there, but very short, sharp, but intense. And then Saturday, game time. But if you ever have the opportunity to see a Mauricio Pochettino training week, go do it, because they're not easy.
And I can only imagine, the lesson for the players is that consistent performance over time takes a lot of commitment and dedication. One of the questions I would like to hear your thoughts on is just the overall competitive level of players at training, even at the professional level. I think that to pull the curtain back for the young players, what their training sessions are like now, they're not professionals, but how competitive are training sessions to maintain that high level of play?
At the best clubs, it's off the charts. And I don't care if it's playing a game of whatever the kids play now on whatever the new one is, the Xboxes and all that. it is off the charts, whether it's a game of pool, whether it's a game of ping pong, whether it is a little bit of friendly betting on in the locker room on something. And the training sessions get fierce. There's arguments all the time because, people are going for it. You go to a little bit of a lesser club and you see 4 or 5, 6 players that can take it easy on a train. The tops, the leaders don't allow that to happen. That's why they're the top clubs. They're winning every day. Yes, you get an experienced player that is through the week and on the weekend. You can when you're there, that's fun then. Because you're doing anything, you can concentrate on your job. When you can concentrate on your job and enjoy your training sessions and enjoy your games, that's fun. I'm now out of the playing side of things, and I assure you, doing a spreadsheet is we do it. I will do it because I have to for my company, and you do. But I don't get done with my day after doing a spreadsheet and say, boy, was that fun. But if I had the hardest training session of my life as a player, yeah, you know what? That's pretty fun when you're looking back on it. So that's one part of it. And I got to tell you, winning when you get to the professional level, Tom, yes, winning is fun. It is, because everyone is in a good mood for at least the next 24 to 48 hours. And like when you play in places like Turkey, it is a relief. You have won. You are not going to be hammered in the media. You're not going to have people stalking you outside your house. You're not going to have people following you to training, wanting to take the air out of your tires, or or key in your car. And like it's fun when you win. A little bit of a relief and a little bit of fun when you win those games. And the other thing that I would be lying and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. I tell you what, Tom, it's a hell of a lot of fun getting a new contract. It is. Sorry, I know. That's probably not the best thing in front of kids to say that athletes play for money, but we do. And just like if you're in any job, and you get reinstated, you get a new contract, you get a new company car, you get, that's fun, and it is. And so I was really fortunate to get up, to have from 19 years of age, because I would include my college scholarship, the first sort of contract I signed, all the way till I was 44. I had a lot of fun in there with a lot of different contracts from a lot of magnificent clubs. Some people might not think, saying that getting the contract is fun. Well, you know what? For me, it was.
Because that's what you're working for. It's a celebration of all your work. So I would applaud you for that, not nothing else. We have a question from Nicole Anderson, and if Brad's not back online, Brad is back online. Nicole, can you unmute yourself? Oh, you're bad. Okay, Brad. Yeah, I thought you'd got lost there, so I was being your sub for a while. So Nicole Anderson, I think, was next after Oliver.
So, hey, Brad, this is actually Kevin Anderson. I'm East West 74 calling you here from Bay Village, Ohio.
Nice. Buddy. Where are you at? Where do you live?
We are
you don't have to throw it out on the
We're on Wolf Road between Dover and Douglas.
All right, nice. My mom's over in Avon Lake now.
Yeah, and Reverend Auburn, my good buddy Mark.
Nice. Very good. And Bird, I played basketball with. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, so that's the connection. Nice. Sitting here with my son, so appreciate you taking the time. So we have kids that are heavily involved in soccer and are in different levels right now, depending on their age. So some are in club and some are still in the Bay soccer system. And I know you played Division I.
Yep.
So they do have aspirations of making it to that next level. And so what do you see are some of the characteristics in what makes a Division I player versus the others, and what can they focus on that might put them in that category?
I mean, first and foremost, they need to decide that they're doing the sport for them. You know, that's because there's a different. When my last answer with what is fun, like hard work has to be considered fun. If hard work becomes hard work, and it's not fun, at some stage you are going to lose the will to want to do that. And to get up to a Division I player, it takes a lot of work, and it's not easy. The one thing that you can always control, no matter how bad you are with the ball that day, because we all have those days, you can always work hard. You can always control how you do it. So if I was a coach and I was coming to a field and scouting, and I ever saw somebody not working hard, I would almost, not every time, but it would just cross them off the list for a little while. Now you have the odd, you have the anomaly with incredibly skillful and they're just lazy, you know, and you have to nurture them, get it. But I would always expect everyone to work hard. So that's number one. You work hard and you enjoy doing into arenas where you're playing against other and training with and playing against other kids that are of the level to get into college or the professional game. And then you see where your sons or daughters are. That's where you need to be. And you'll see, and they'll tell, like, how far are they off the pace, or are they one of the best? Are they in the middle? You know, if they're in the middle, they have a chance to be up there, you know, and you can kind of gauge where they're at. But you won't know that until you're playing with and against the best competition. And I think, I don't know if you're listening to an earlier answer that I had with someone, that doesn't mean that club is awesome. You know, it doesn't mean that coaching is going to be, and this doesn't mean it's going to be a breath of fresh. It absolutely, thing you are doing is getting your son or daughter involved in playing with and against better competition, and competition that will be getting the college scholarships or playing in college, and then you can really see where they're at.
Good. And I've got a question from Aaron Lindau.
These situations they're put in some of these club games where there's, you know, folks standing on the sideline with clipboards and they see them for 10 minutes. And, you know, if you can see that hard work, that keeps them on the list, or it keeps them at least in the mix.
Well, like you have to, I mean, sometimes it's luck when a scout, I mean, a scout
right.
should obviously be scouting longer than 10 minutes, but, you know, something's going to catch an eye. And sometimes I got to tell you, if I see what could catch an eye, I see a kid yelling at his coach or yelling at the referee or yelling at a parent. That's not going to impress me as the scout coming by.
Yep.
There was a question from Aaron Lindau, who I unmuted, about World Cup experience.
Okay.
Aaron?
You do it with your headphones now.
All right, how about that one? Can you hear us now?
I got you.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Hi, Brad. Thanks so much for doing this, and thanks for being an inspiration for us, you know, younger guys all these years, especially when you made the move over to Europe. That was, you know, obviously really, really big, even for, you know, for some of the younger guys that followed your career all the way. I'm here with my son, Michael. He's U13, and he was very interested in your World Cup experience and what it was like to play on that stage.
So I had three different World Cups, 3 different experiences. 94, I was the backup, and I was young, went by in a flash. That was the one that was in the U.S. We lost to Brazil in the second round. Incredible experience. I didn't get on the field, you know, so it was an experience in a different manner for me. And second one was 98, and we were terrible. I got to tell you, like, we had good players, but we were not a team. Finished 32 out of 32. I played against Yugoslavia. Casey Keller played the other 2 games. It's kind of a mess the whole time, you know, through qualifying and the build-up. Just a lot of turmoil, not a lot of cohesiveness. So we had that one. And then, so I go from 94, we had a lot of cohesiveness. Bora Miljutinovic did a really good job with the team. I didn't get to play, so it's a different kind of scenario. 98, we were not a good team. and we didn't have a lot of cohesiveness. I was like a joint number one back then, but we weren't really good as a team. 2002, we had a great team. We really did. Quarterfinals. We had some outstanding players in that team. Eddie Pope and Tony Santa, the Eddie Lewis, Claudio Reynes, John O'Brien's, Brian McBride's, DeMarcus Beasley, Landon Donovan. There were two young players coming through at the time. Kobe Jones and Joe Max Moores, and so many of us were playing big roles with our teams in Europe. And we just had a really good team. That one stands out, obviously, because it's the one I played in the most, and we were good. And if not for a refereeing decision, we should really have beaten Germany. You know, we lost 1-0, but we had a header that was cleared off the lines. I think it was by Torsten Frings, a handball on the line, and it should have had penalty to us and a man sent off in the second half. You know, and so, but we were good. We were very good. Oliver Kahn was man of the match for Germany, their goalkeeper on the day. But that was very memorable, a remarkable experience.
Brad, you talked about the different level of the team performance at the different World Cups, and obviously played for a lot of different managers, professional. What separated them? What made the managers successful, not successful? What are some of the common threads?
Oh, I mean, Bora Milutinovic was vastly experienced. We didn't have a professional league back then. This was before MLS started. He had pretty much the national team players as a club team, unless you were playing at a
Okay,
Europe.
now I hear it.
And he and he did a good job. Steve Sampson in '98, he was very inexperienced at the top level, and I think he found the whole situation very, very difficult to navigate through. And then when Bruce Arena took over, although he wasn't vastly experienced at the international level, he was at coaching professionals. And again, we had a very cohesive unit. And you know, Bruce's career speaks for itself, and he's been a very good head coach over the years. So I think the experience levels of the coaches helped a lot. And international soccer is a lot different than club soccer. You don't get the players day to day, and if you ever have issues in one of your camps, you have to wait a long time to get those issues ironed out. Whereas a club, you could have a fight one day, the next day, everything's ironed out. So I think experience goes a long way with the international game.
And just to follow that up about the managers you played for professionally, what are some common threads of successful pro managers that you witnessed that helped develop teams and players?
Structured, organized, didn't lie to the players, and had the backing above them. Very simple. Yeah, there's not a lot more to it. Every manager I had outstanding knowledge between the years. Not all of them were organized, not all of them were structured. Some of them wouldn't tell players the truth, especially when they were doing contracts and things of that nature. If you were honest with the player, even if you had to give them one minute of hard news, it was better than having a month of festering issues in the changing room. And then after that, you had to have a board that allowed the head coach to know exactly what their budgets were, exactly who they could sign, what kind of players they could sign, who they couldn't sign, and those clubs and teams and head coaches were very successful. When even some of those successful coaches went to other clubs, I could tell right away. So if you take Mark Hughes' career, I know him as a head coach inside and out, and I played with him for 2 years. And he is very structured, and he's an excellent coach. When he went other places and it didn't quite work out, I could tell you exactly why, and I'll tell you that it wasn't because of him.
Thank you. Gordon Brown, you've been unmuted. You had a question.
Yeah, so Brad, you've described there how people are the players are very competitive in training, and even when it comes to a game of ping pong ball or something,
yeah,
folks are very competitive. Right across the world now, we have leagues that may be called early. As a former professional and as somebody that's a winner, how would you feel about that?
I mean, that's a tough one. It's tough. I don't know enough about the coronavirus or the pandemic. In general, I would want to play. I'll tell you that. But I would be listening to the advice of the health officials. It would be. I would, if I were in Liverpool's shoes, for instance, I would definitely want to get this season over and done with because they should be crowned champions. They've been the best. But when you're talking about competitiveness, I could see the Man Cities of this world say, no, let's cancel it. Or the Man United, so Liverpool can't win the title. If you're just looking into the Premier League. I would be really upset if the league stopped. I would find it, I'd be frustrated right now being in quarantine and not being able to play the games, but I would understand it. But it'd be frustrating. I'm sure there's a lot of players that don't know what to do with their time right now.
Thank you. I've unmuted David's iPhone, who's asking about advice for young players. So David's iPhone, you want to jump in?
So hi, Brad. Contacting you from Glasgow, Scotland. We're actually Tom Turner's Zammy's nephew, and this is Harris, his great nephew.
Hello. Nice one. How are you?
Not bad. Harris has got another question. The first question he asked about what goalkeeper you admired growing up. When we missed it, we get cut off for technical issues. But he's got another question for you. So over to Harris.
So as my dad said, I'm Harris and I'm Tom's great nephew. I'm 12 and I play football. And what advice would you give 12-year-old Brad?
I always say it to my own kids. You got to play with a smile on your face, and you've got to work really hard. Like there's no secrets in being good at something, and it's not just sports, not just football. It is, if you're going to be good, and then you're going to be great at something, you work hard. David Beckham was not great at free kicks because he just turned up on a Saturday and took a couple of free kicks. Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi are not the world's best because they turn up on a weekend every now and again. It just doesn't happen that way. All the best players in the world that I played with and against have one common trait, and they all work very hard at their special tools. And if you ever find where it's not fun, it might not be the thing for you. Because you have to enjoy it as well as working hard at it. And there is no substitute for it. There really isn't. There's no shortcuts, I'm afraid, when it comes down to it.
Excellent advice. Corbin McEvnew, you've been unmuted, discussing about a trip to playing in Europe. Corbin? You've got a sovereign fleet approaching from the rear. Why would they do? So while Corbin's trying to jump on, Brad, the question was, tell me about how you made the jump to European football after college. With more options available now, would you recommend going to college or going straight pro?
Oh, well, I think you can go straight pro now because most MLS clubs, even some USL clubs, and definitely clubs in Europe, you can get college paid for. If you're good enough to turn pro, and the club wants you, I would suggest doing it. The only thing I would say is just make sure in your contract that you have you get your college tuition paid for, and a lot of clubs will do that. A lot of them will even do it up to a 10 or a 15-year period after you're done playing, in case you get a career-ending injury or you don't make it, things of that nature. So if you're good enough, go try to do pro. Just you have a lot of time on your hands, so you really do not have any excuse for not getting an education. I think if you use it as an excuse not to get one, then that's your own fault, because you never know when the injury's around the corner. You never know when you're not going to get a contract. So if you're good enough, you go for it and you get it, and you just negotiate the college tuition in there.
Excellent answer. I've tried to unmute Nico the Awesome, which is what he's signed in on. Nico the Awesome, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
How is like the style of play different in like different countries?
That's one of the things that makes the World Cup so great, and what makes the Champions League so fascinating. Why it's the world's best club competition. It doesn't matter if you like the Premier League. It doesn't mean it's the best league in the world. It just means that you yourself like it, right? La Liga is an outstanding league on its own. Completely different style of play than England. You go to Belgium, completely different style of play. Holland, completely different style of play. Ligue 1 France, completely different style of play. Bundesliga, go over to the Russian league. So they're all different. When you get into coaching, hold on one second. Come on up. What do you need? Have your mom come. When you get into coaching, you then learn about in depth about all these styles. But as a player, it's what makes the competitions fantastic and hard and all the same. You know, some clubs that you would never have heard of in the Ukraine, for instance, you go there and their style of play is really hard to play against because you're used to playing in the Premier League every day. So in the Mexican league, outstanding league, completely different style. And some of that has to do with the climate. Some of it has to do with the the field conditions. Some countries you play on AstroTurf, some you play on grass, some at altitude, some it's 100 degrees, some it's minus 20. You know, so there's all sorts of different shapes and sizes when it comes to why certain cultures play certain ways. You have diving is accepted in some countries, it's not in others. Sometimes fouls would be considered red cards in some countries that aren't, and that's what makes the game magnificent.
There's a question from Callan K.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a youth soccer player from Homestead Falls, and I also play for Cleveland Football Club. I'm the starting goalkeeper. Is there any advice you would have for me from high school for high school soccer?
I mean, do you enjoy the game?
Yeah, very much.
Sorry, I can barely hear. I think you said, yeah, very much.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, if you enjoy my advice, and I'm sorry that I'm sounding like a broken record, but if you like the game and love the game and you enjoy it, you play as much as you can against the best competition you can, and you work as hard as you can. That's my advice. And I'm sorry it's so plain and simple, but that's really what there is. I mean, watch it on TV, read about it. Really get engulfed in it.
Brad, we have a question from Oliver Morota.
Okay. Yeah, pretty much.
Oliver? Yep.
How would you get under the radar? How would you get recognized as a player from even a town like Bay Village?
I was lucky. I was playing at a tournament in Virginia, and the assistant coach at UCLA either missed his flight or delayed his flight. And came back to the field and saw me play. It was lucky. We didn't have scouting networks back then. A lot of it was word of mouth. And if you were in California, you could get seen. If you were in Texas, you could get seen. Some of the bigger areas. Tom was the head coach of Cleveland State at the time. I think, right? I think Tom Turner was. And it was harder to scout players back then. Much easier now. To get scouted, and I got to tell you, I got lucky.
Yeah, it's a different world now for players, particularly with access to video and
Brad,
travel.
Could you hold on for 2 seconds?
Yep.
Real quick, 2 seconds.
So the questions coming in on chat have been fantastic. I think we've got about another 10 minutes. If you have any other questions, keep them coming in.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. So, Brad, one of the questions that I think would be interesting for the players to hear about is just experiences in terms of best players you felt you played with and against, whether it be club level, internationally, or whatnot.
Wow. Okay, so best players I played with. Georgie Hadji at Galatasaray. Gareth Bale, Tottenham. Luka Modric, Tottenham. Robbie Fowler, Liverpool. Paul Ince, Liverpool. Two-guy, Blackburn. Roque Santa Cruz, Andy Cole, Dwight York, Blackburn. John Carew was up there with when I played at Villa. Kyle Walker at Tottenham, magnificent. Karl-Heinz Riedle at Liverpool. I played with so many good players, but I'm trying to give you the best. Damien Duff, when he was at Blackburn, he was outstanding. Against Dennis Bergkamp, whoa, what a tremendous player. Cristiano Ronaldo, Thierry Henry, probably the whole Arsenal team back then, to be honest with you. But playing against Ruud van Nistelrooy, Beckham, Paul Scholes, Teddy Sheringham, that Man United team, Andy Cole, Dwight York. So I was fortunate to play with Yorkie and Coley at Blackburn, and then I played against them, obviously, when they were at the treble-winning side with Man United. Alan Shearer, well, what a tremendous striker Alan Shearer was. Ryan, like one of the best, Ryan Giggs. I'll forget too many of them. Mark Overmars, tremendous player. I don't know. There were a lot of great players. Romarios and Bebetos and going to Batistuta. A lot.
And
too many to name, I guess.
When you're looking at the game through the lens of those players, talk about top American players aside from yourself. Who do you rate as some of the top U.S. players historically or even currently?
Well, let's go historically first. One of the best players that I ever played with the U.S. national team was Roy Wegerle. And he doesn't get he gets hardly any recognition here. Tab Ramos and Roy were two of the best American players that have ever put on a shirt. And people talk about other players like they're gods. These two, if they played today with social media and where people could see them a little bit more, they would see just how good these two guys were. Claudio Reyna was outstanding. John O'Brien, when he was starting at Ajax, was a great player. It was really, really good. Joe Max Moore, very competitive. Brian McBride. Eddie Pope, probably the best American defender I played with. Very consistent, very good. Today, and I've been lucky enough to coach a couple of them. I've not coached Christian Pulisic. He was already graduated to the senior team. So hopefully he continues having an incredible career. But there's three players over in Europe right now that hopefully can knock the doors off my career. One is Weston McKennie at Schalke. One is Tyler Adams at Red Bull Leipzig, and the other is Josh Sargent, who's I believe at Bremen, either Bremen or Gladbach. But those three players are true talents. And I hope they go on to have a longer career than I did, if that's possible for an outfield player, and lift all sorts of trophies and get to big boy clubs. But they're so much in such a better place than I was at their age getting over there. They're really, really good players.
Thank you for that. Brian McDonald has a question, and he has been unmuted.
Brad, thanks for your time. Curious, who had the hardest shot against you, if you could remember?
Patrick Berger. Not a difficult question to answer. Patrick Berger. I played with him. He's a Czechoslovakia, then moved to Czech Republic International. Played with him at Liverpool. Unbelievable left foot. And then he went on to play at Villa after that. Great guy. What a good player. And his left foot was so hard. The shot was so hard. yeah, he had the hardest, just the most powerful shot that I ever faced.
And it had to be a lefty, didn't it? The next question from Chris N2 Degage. And that person has been unmuted.
So, like, how did you become like such a good goalkeeper? And what did you like most about being a goalkeeper?
I think there's two things being goalkeeper. You have to be brave and you have to be an athlete. If you're two of those, then you can get taught everything else. I was brave and I was a very good athlete growing up. And then the third thing I say, you have to fall in love with it because it takes a lot of hard work. Once I was fortunate enough to learn the techniques of goalkeeping and I was willing to throw my body in front of things, then it just kind of transpired that way. And you know, I fell in love with that sport over the other sports as time went on. Whereas I think when I first started playing soccer, you know, I really did probably like basketball and ice hockey better.
Yeah, to follow up with that comment you made about being an athlete and being brave, have your opinions changed over the years that when goalkeepers should really start focusing on the technical side of their game versus being a soccer player first, playing as an outfield player, and then developing the goalkeeping skills separately?
Yeah, well, you just touched on it. The only thing that's changed is that when I first started, you could pick up the back pass. I actually played in the first FIFA regulated game where you couldn't pick it up. That was the 92 Olympics against Italy at Camp Nou. I think that rule, by the way, has been the best rule ever implemented in the game. But you do have to be better with your feet than when I was growing up, without a doubt. But I still stand by. I would rather my goalkeeper be better at saving things from hitting the back of the net than playing out from the back. But it is important to be good with your feet now. As far as focusing on goalkeeping only, probably 13, 14, 15. But you still should get some reps outfield. It's important to know what happens with the rest of the outfield players. You should know the other positions because you're the one standing there doing all the communicating with them. So I think it is important, even if you're not the best at it.
And you mentioned playing at the Camp Nou. Do you have the most memorable environment that you ever played in?
Love playing at Estadio Azteca. 120,000 people all against you. Outstanding. I like playing at Ali Sami Yen at Galatasaray. Really like playing up at Newcastle. Tremendous atmosphere up there. Anfield, special place to play. White Hart Lane's a good one. Villa Park. Old Trafford's kind of quiet, to be honest with you. Great, atmosphere, or a great stadium, but kind of quiet for how many people are in there. We going into Europe. The San Siro's pretty good stadium to go play in. And a lot of history there. So yeah, quite a few. And I really like internationally Estadio Azteca. That was a fun place to go play.
Excellent. Oliver Murata is a question for you.
About how long, like every day, would you focus on your training and your player development?
Like in the peak of my career, or during Premier League, I'd probably turn up at the training ground somewhere around 8:30 in the morning, and would probably leave, through 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then depending if I had videos to watch or whatever, I'd take that home with me. And I used to do evening yoga sessions. So I would probably, quite a few, probably, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day, just on the physical training side of things.
So we've gone an hour, Brad, and with respect to your time, I think Tom is going to say a few words to wrap us up.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Brad. As always, you're very gracious with your time. I know there's a lot of young people in here who've just been inspired. they probably never sat and looked at a professional athlete, especially one from Northern Ohio, who's come through some of the same programs that they have.
And especially not one in quarantine. Especially not one in quarantine.
No, I think if you have a video and you could put it on, maybe you can give Brad a couple of thumbs up and thank him for his time. Those of you who are there, just thank you. But no, we really appreciate it, Brad. Good luck to you with the new career. There we go. We've got more people coming online to say hi. Thank you. Some screens. Apparently young people put emojis or whatever these things are called up instead of hands. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this. Brad, thanks to you.
Right. Thank you, Tom. Pleasure as always, and good luck to everybody. And most importantly, stay safe right now.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Bye,
Thanks for your time.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye
everybody.
from Scotland.
Bye.
Bye, youngsters.
Bye, Barb.
Bye, David.
Got a family reunion going on.
We could stay on. We're going to have a family reunion here. Yeah.
David, just stay on.
Happy
Tom, how's the hangover?
Nico the Awesome, good question.
How's the hangover?
No hangover.
None. We're good.
Nah.
No, we were good. Good night's sleep in bed.
It was Tom's birthday yesterday.
So we call you? Yeah.
We're muting you.
We'll,
Bye, Brad.
Bye, everybody. Good job, Brad.
You guys, thanks for doing that.
Okay.